allegedly what happened in this case in the implementation of DOF Circular 003, 2024. Now, Mr. Secretary, how will you reconcile this argument with the doctrine of qualified political agency, which postulates that the heads of the various executive departments, including the DOF Secretary, are the alter egos of the President, and thus the actions taken by such heads in the performance of their official duties are deemed the acts of the President unless the President himself should disapprove such acts?
With all due respect, Associate Justice, I will leave the legal arguments to our Solicitor General, and I will confine my responses to the policy at hand.
May I request Sergeant Guevara to please take the mic? The mic. Please use the mic.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Your Honor, that constitutional provision is not at all applicable because that provision speaks of savings. And savings, as defined in NAGAA and as ruled by this Honorable Court, pertains to that portion or that balance of an appropriated amount that is no longer needed for certain reasons, like the project for which that fund has been allocated has already been completed, or that project or program has been finally abandoned, or for the reason that due to some efficiency measures taken by that government agency, then certain amounts were saved. So it is that concept of savings, Your Honor, that is referred to under Section 29(3) of Article 6 of the Constitution, for which only the President, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the heads of the Constitutional Commissions, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House are authorized to transfer or to effect, to augment another item in their respective appropriations. So that is not the one that is the subject of Section 1D of the GAA 2024.
Congressman, okay, you're already excused. I have one last question for Secretary Recto. Short lang po. Which other GOCC or GOCCs, meaning other than Philhealth, have remitted their fund balances to the National Treasury pursuant to Item 1D of the 2024 GAA? And how much was each remittance? Were those remittances already spent? If so, for what purpose? My second last question. If the court were to direct the government to return to Philhealth and the other GOCCs their respective remittances, can the government comply with such directive? What impact will such ruling have on the financial position of the government? Kindly elaborate.
Yes, thank you very much, Associate Justice. There is another GOCC that did remit to the National Treasury, and this is the PDIC, roughly about 104 billion. We could submit to the court the list of projects that that remittance was funded, including the Salary Standardization Law 6 for government employees. Now, having said that, Mr. Bray, I think your last question was, will the government comply with a ruling of the Supreme Court?
Yes, and what will will happen to the government?
Yes.
After that?
Naturally, if the government were to tell the executive to return the money, we will include that in the National Expenditure Program for 2026. But having said that, assuming if the ruling were for 2025, that will add a fiscal pressure to our deficit. And that would entail us not hitting our deficit targets this year. And if we miss that, then we may not attain our coveted credit rating upgrade that we foresee in the next 18 months.
Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you.
Curiosity, and I hope you
Yes, sir.
can excuse me for this question. When you say you are the lone voice, you are the lone voice for modern monetary economics?
Theory,
You're the lone voice. Okay.
yes, in the DOF.
I am happy to hear that,
Yes, sir.
but I do not know if the others will be happy to hear that I am happy to hear that. Okay. Let's look at your daily math for government.
Yes,
15.8 billion pesos a day
is what we are spending.
spending.
And when we pass the budget, many people think that you have 5.7 trillion in the bank. That is not true.
Yes,
We
I
have to
understand.
collect 11.7
11.7
billion a day.
and 4.1 billion by loans, correct?
That's only for the deficit.
Okay, now I see your point from the point of view of income. But what I want to invite you to look at is the expense. The expense side.
Yes,
And the expense side, which means 50.8 billion, that can include funds which are the subject of corruption, correct?
that is correct.
Yes. So when we say
But I would
15.8,
hasten to add that there is more corruption on the revenue side than on the expenditure side.
yes, but still, when we look at 15.8 billion a day, we can take a look at not only corruption, outright stealing from people, the people's money, but also inefficiencies, correct?
That is correct.
Correct. And therefore, the gap that you need to fill in can sometimes be addressed not only by transferring funds, but also by attending to accountability, correct?
Definitely.
And accountability includes following the rule of law, correct?
That is correct.
And therefore, it is very important that we follow our SPJI, Strategic Plan for Judicial Intervention, and our current thrust towards integrity in our court, integrity at judiciary.gov.ph, correct? And we are hoping that,
I'm not familiar with
Yes.
the judiciary, but I would assume you're correct.
yes, and well, I am. On SPJI at least,
Yes,
okay?
yes. For sure.
I needed to mention that because
Yes,
alangan naman si Justice Mario lang magbabanggit, okay? But the point there again is, when we look at expenses and we look at collection, it is also that there are leakages along the way, correct?
That is correct.
And that the stopgap measure of actually transferring 60 billion from Philhealth and 100 something from PDIC,
PDIC 104?
104 from PDIC was really a stopgap measure that did not address the systemic problem, correct?
Yeah, I think it does.
Well, it does for the moment, but it does also for teaching a lesson to these government corporations from your point of view, correct?
Yes, it's teaching a lesson to the government corporations because if you did do that with Philhealth, they would not have improved their benefit packages. If we do not reduce, as you correctly pointed out, the reserve requirement, then there will be less money for increasing benefit packages to reduce out-of-pocket expenses.
Okay. So, to solve our economic dilemma, we are not yet in crisis, but if we do not handle this well, we can be in crisis, correct? There is
That is correct.
there is an argument to be made
Yes.
that corruption, if it has become bigger, should be addressed.
Yes,
You agree?
correct, and that includes the fiscal health of the nation.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you very
That
much.
was very enlightening.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I now
Maraming salamat
ask
po.
Sunny, Africa? Okay, you may stay in your place. Okay. Mr. Africa, are you familiar with the statistics, with the recent SWS survey on hunger that was recently published?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Am I correct to say that 27.2% of our households, according to that study, in March, is suffering through some form of involuntary hunger?
According to the SWS survey, yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And if I did make a rough computation, that would amount to 7.5 million households. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, but it is not only those that are hungry that suffer from the impact of not having the proper funding in order to attend to health issues, but more than them, correct?
Yes, Your Honor, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes. And according to your studies, what is now the reasonable living daily income for Filipino families?
Our computation of the family living wage for a family of 5 is at about 1,227 pesos.
1,200
27 pesos on the national average
daily for a family or for a person?
for a family of 5.
And minimum wage averages?
It's 645 in NCR. It's 361 in BARM. National average is about, I think, 435. I think 450 pesos.
Okay. Now, what we heard from government is that there's absorptive capacity problems in the Philhealth. Therefore, they removed funds because that was the right economic thing to do in order to be able to fund the other projects which may affect also the health of our citizens. Okay? Do you accept that?
No, Your Honor, because the opportunity cost of the impact on lowering Philhealth indirect beneficiaries, we did see a fall in the number of Philhealth indirect beneficiaries because already of budget cuts. It was, I think, 642 million in indirect beneficiaries in 2023, down to about 21 million in 2024. That immediately impacts on, we believe, roughly 60 to 70% of poor and vulnerable Filipinos, including, according to the Bangko Sentral, 75% of families who do not have any savings, whether in the bank, at home, in their pockets. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Africa.
Thank you.
Ms. Susara, I am confused about your statement regarding unprogrammed funds during the in your opening. In a nutshell, not more than 3 minutes, can you tell us again your view of the unprogrammed funds as it has morphed today?
Okay, so originally, the unprogrammed funds were just standby appropriation. So it's a list of general line items of appropriation which the executive branch can trigger release of funds for only on certain instances. Those are 3. 1, if there are excess revenue collections. Number 2, if there are new revenue measures. Number 3, if there are foreign loans. But it has morphed in the last 3 years. In fact, even in the 2025 budget, there's still bloated and program appropriations. What's been happening is that many priority programs and projects for social services and infrastructure projects that were originally part of the programmed appropriations, which in simple terms is the portion of the budget that has guaranteed cash funding from the different sources of financing, have been essentially deprioritized and placed into the unprogrammed appropriations. And so that is the reason why on the expenditure side, there is a huge problem. And this is what necessitated the need to sweep the cash from the GOCC. So, in my view, it was an unnecessary problem. Why do I say this? It's because when the executive branch submits the budget or the National Expenditure Plan program to Congress, they factor in the fiscal program, precisely all of the things that the good Secretary of Finance mentioned: revenues, expenditures, deficit, and debt. The problem is the bicameral conference committee included a lot, hundreds of billions of insertions, and placed them, essentially replaced what were taken out and placed in the unprogrammed appropriations with a lot of many other programs, primarily in the budgets of DSWD and the DPWH. So what happened there is all of the things that were slashed from the programmed appropriations now park in the unprogrammed appropriations. Remember, this is the part of the budget that doesn't have guaranteed cash cover. But they are priority projects. The government concedes that they are priority projects, and so they need to be funded. And so because of that situation, which has been happening for the past 4 fiscal years, we are in a situation where the fiscal oversight agencies have to grapple with raising additional revenues, raising additional non-tax sources of financing in order to plug the unfunded and programmed appropriations.
Thank you for that enlightenment. It is also part of the context that we will want to take into consideration. And I am sure that you have the numbers to support your claim. And not now. And when you will be required to submit your memoranda as amicus, then you will probably help us with the proper numbers as well as the primary sources for all of this.
I will, Your Honors.
Thank you. And finally, Dr. Orville Solon, having heard all of what you have heard so far for the past 5 sittings and the clarifications of the lawyers, from your point of view, from an economic point of view, would it have been better not to transfer from Philhealth?
After listening to the hearings, I now believe that the transfer, whether or not, regardless of how it will be decided by the court, has already generated the kinds of actions that I thought, as an economist, the incentive effects, already in terms of addressing problems, intrinsic problems in the Philhealth program.
Because in your opening, you did say that, to tell Philhealth that they had a problem, the idle funds had to be used and transferred. And right now, not only is there a new precedent, that there are new programs that are now being done by Philhealth, although, of course, as a citizen, and for the citizens that are listening right now, for the people that are listening right now, it's not yet enough. And it will never be enough until they will have the full kind of universal health care. And I hope that we do not judge our people that they demand that they do not continue to suffer. Correct?
I am one with everybody in the room, which points out that the Universal Health Care Act is severely underfunded. But my outrage comes not because it's not funded, but because there's funds that could have been used. My apprehension now, my remaining apprehension is, can this attention that is given by the public through this discussion with the court be sustained so that Philhealth actually does good its promises to undertake these reforms that has been discussed?
Thank you, Doctor. And that is beyond the court. And I think the Chief and the other Associate Justices, we feel that we have done our part for these oral arguments. But abangan ang susunod na kabanata because we are yet to rule. Chief, may I just call one other person, Mr. Attorney Sani Matdula. Magsasaka? Ay, magnagawa. Just a very brief point. Kayo po ay kinatawan ng mga manggagawa. Tama po ba?
Tama po, Your Honor.
And para lang sa kaalaman ng Korte Suprema at mga hukom dito, maliwanag na ang aming mga karanasan bilang hukom, bilang individual at ang aming mga pamilya ay ibang-iba sa nararanasan ng ating mga ordinaryong manggagawa. Totoo ho ba yun?
Maaari po.
Na kapag kami ay magkasakit, madalas meron kami mga kaibigan na pwedeng puntahan bukod sa Philhealth at saka sa judiciary, meron kaming HMO. Pero karamihan sa mga magsasaka, kung minsan, nakasalalay lang sila sa tulong na binibigay ng gobyerno.
Totoo po yun.
And sa tulong ng gobyerno, hindi lang PhilHealth. Pero kung minsan kumakagat na lang sa patalim, pupunta sila sa kanilang mayor, congressman, councilor, etc. Tama? Tama ho ba?
Tama po, Your Honor.
Yes. And gusto ko lang malaman po sa inyo na ang aming tungkulin ay hindi lamang the rule of law, kundi the rule of law, but also to do justice. Tama ho ba yan?
Tama po, Your Honor. Kaya po sa aming petisyon in intervention, ay hiningi namin sa Korte Suprema na ibalik ang pondo ng Philhealth sapagkat sa tingin namin ito po ay a negative social justice measure na ginawa ng gobyerno.
So kapag may dalawang technical na paraan na ma-justify namin, isa para sa katarungan at isa hindi masyado para sa katarungan, dun dapat kami kung saan we do our names, kasi justice kami, na we do justice. Nagagawin namin ang social justice o ang katarungan. Tama ho ba?
Tama po kayo, Your Honor.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
I
Your
yield, Chief.
Thank you very much, Senior Associate Justice Marvic Leonen. May I call on Justice Ko for his additional interpellation questions?
Thank you, Chief. Anybody from the government? I would like to ask on the intricacies of Section 37 on appropriation. Who can explain to me the government side of 37?
Section 37.
Section 37. The appropriation. The sources of
Appropriation. The Solicitor General can answer that, I think. It's part of your presentation, Mr.
sa bagay na umpisa na ni
Such.
Justice Mario kanina, for transparency purposes also, I work under Solicitor General Guevara when he was the Secretary of Justice. I was Undersecretariat for a few months under him. Also, banggitin ko na rin si ASG George Orta. When I was in DOJ as Undersecretary, he was my Assistant Secretary. So, ikuan lang yun. Clarification na. Okay, I'll proceed to Section 37. Section 37 enumerates the sources for funding the universal healthcare law. Do you agree with me, Mr. Solgen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Under 37, it appears that there are 6 sources enumerated: A, B, C, D, and F.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, these 6 sources of funding is not exclusively for PhilHealth. It is also funding for DOH because DOH is also an agency that would implement the universal health care.
Exactly, Your Honor.
Okay.
For the DOH and for PhilHealth.
So, DOH and PhilHealth are the 2 agencies, principal agencies, that would implement the universal health care law.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, does these 6 sources of funding are independent sources of funding either to DOH or to PhilHealth?
No, Your Honor. They are supposed to be included in the GA, all of these funds.
Okay.
And it will be up to Congress to appropriate either to PhilHealth
Or to DOH?
or to DOH or both.
Okay. However, if you notice, section or paragraph D refers to premium contribution of members. These refer to direct members, those who pay premiums. Right, Mr. Solicitor General?
Yes, Your Honor.
So therefore, with respect to paragraph D, your statement earlier might not be true in the sense that these are contribution of direct members not passing through GA.
I think so. I make that kind of modification, Your Honor, because the direct contributions from the
Members, government.
excuse me, Your Honor. Just conferring for a second with
Yes.
the Secretary of Finance.